Hello, confirmation friends. Welcome to video number something. I don't even remember what this is. We're getting up there. Thank you for tuning back in. This is going to be a shorter video, I think, but maybe one of the most important things that I will tell to you this year. I'm very excited to talk about this. It is relatively straightforward, but it is super important. The theme of this talk has to do with Christianity and other religions. You might hear this called interreligious relations, something about world religions. You might hear it talked about as something called pluralism, which is not that great a word. But these expressions all have in common the idea of what is the best way for religions to get along with each other. Historically, different religions have not got along very well. And in fact, sometimes, occasionally, there have been religious reasons why peoples have gone to war with each other. Sometimes religion has been responsible for some awful and tragic things in human history, which has led many people over the years to simply write religion off. I had a teacher, though, who used to say that, religion is responsible for some of the worst things about humanity, but it is also responsible for perhaps the most beautiful things about being human. I would say on balance, religion has contributed much, much more to human culture than it has taken away. And I would also say that when it comes to religion, probably the vast majority of times people have gone to war with each other, it has more often had to do with economics than anything else. Politics, possibly, personal slights, vengeance, ambition, the wish to expand one's political borders, all of these things. Religion maybe has been used as an excuse as to why people have gone to war, but I would say very rarely has it been the actual reason or the predominant one. I would say overall religion has been a force, a very, very, very positive force in human life and in human history. We are all aware that there are different world religions, religions whose adherents can be found all over the world. So I want to talk about that today. The topic is Christianity and other religions, or Christians and other religious peoples. That's probably a better title, Christians and other religious peoples. What's our relationship to them? How should we relate to them? How do we get along with them? Or should we get along with them? What is our stance as Christians? This is so important. How many people are there in the world now? 7 billion, over 7 billion? I don't know, a lot. And the vast majority of them are, and always have been throughout human history, religious. Here's just a list of, a few of the other religious peoples in the world. There are Christians, of course, and then there are Muslims and Jews. We have had occasion over the course of our time together to speak of predominantly of Christians and Jews. Christians, those, of course, who believe Jesus is the one who has come to make things right in the world. Jews still waiting, or do not believe Jesus is the one they're waiting for to make things right in the world. Muslims, we talked a little bit in our Christian history crash course. They believe that their prophet Muhammad in the 6th century, about 600 years after Jesus, received a series of revelations from God that were later compiled into the book known as the Quran. And so Muslims are those who believe that God has revealed a special message for human beings in the pages of the Quran. Out east in India, there are the religions of the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Sikhs. Further east, there are, and the Jains. Further east in China, there are the religions not only of Buddhism as well, but of Taoism and Confucianism, and you can now find these adherents all over the world. There are many, many other religions as well. These are some of the most predominant ones that have adherents in the world today. Now, one little fact that you should always keep in mind is that just between Christians and Muslims, over half the world's population is right here. Christians and Muslims represent over half the world's population, just over half the people on the planet Earth. So my contention is always, if these two groups of people cannot get along, our planet is probably doomed. Now, Christians and Muslims have shared a political border for over 1,000 years, and that, as you can imagine, has often led to political strife. So Christians and Muslims have, in general, always had very, very poor relations. But I'm one of those who believes that we can do our best to try and understand other religious human beings and get along, maybe even learn something from each other. But more about that in a little bit. First, I want to say a word about comparing religions. Comparing is a very, very human thing to do. Compare what I have to what you have. Compare my way of being to your way of being. And in the case of religion, compare my religion to your religion. Now, when it comes to religion, people usually want to compare the ideals of their own religion with the realities of somebody else's religion. Okay? And that is really unfair comparison. So when I was in religious studies and studying world religions, I always learned that if you're going to compare religions, you need to compare fair. So if you're going to compare religions, you compare the ideals of one religion against the ideals of another religion, or you compare the realities of one religion to the realities of another religion. It is not fair to compare the ideals of your own religion to the day-to-day realities of your other religion. All human beings make mistakes. All human beings fail to live up to the ideals of their religion. So that is why when we compare our religions with one another, we should always compare fair. So that is a really, really important thing going forward. Now, there is a certain train of thought that all religions are basically the same. I'm here to tell you that I've studied several of them in depth, and that is simply not true. To think they are all the same, or they are going to lead to the same way of life, or the same outcome, or the same reality, I think that is false. They are different from one another. Now, that's not to say they don't have a lot in common. We have a great deal in common, especially with our Muslim and Jewish brothers and sisters, and that is a joy. One thing perhaps all religions have in common is maybe the most important thing: love God, love your neighbor. That is a theme that can be found across religions. Be merciful. Share the compassion. The heart of reality is God. God, in essence, is compassion. So we should love God and love our neighbors with the same sort of compassion. Nevertheless, there are lots of differences. So one of the most important things I want you to take away from today's talk is something about difference. And this is probably something you can apply in all areas of your life. Really, we could have called this talk Differences. We usually think of differences as something bad. And right now, in the world, the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, we have seen how differences between people have led to extremely bad relationships between people. It's led to conflict. It's led to division. It's led to harm. It's led to name-calling and violence and worse. Friends, we do not have to think of difference as something bad. I think this is a fundamental error in human life, and it's been going on for thousands of years. We have choices as human beings. We can choose to see differences as bad and as something that inevitably leads to conflict, or we can choose to see difference as something good in human life. God made the world, in our understanding, as wondrously diverse, full of oddity and strangeness and wonder. Anyone who studies world history or studies science and biology knows that the world is a wondrously diverse and fascinating place. And we Christians believe this is exactly the way God has made it. God has filled the world with beauty and wondrous diversity. This is something to be celebrated. Our differences as human beings, therefore, are something, somehow, in the mystery of God, God has created. And if we start to wonder why, I think the answer is clear. It is because difference is a good thing. My belief is that difference is a good thing. Difference is an enriching thing. Difference is how we grow as human beings. It's how we become larger people. It's how we grow in faith, in knowledge, and in love. But being different from one another is challenging. I spent many years in university studying Islam, the religion of Muslims, and I made many good Muslim friends. I wanted to understand where they were coming from. I wanted to understand their religion, their history, their theology, their great theologians, their books of poetry, their inner religious life. I spent years doing that, years and years and years. And it was incredibly enriching, but it was not easy. It is not easy to really understand another human being and understand what motivates them and what is at their heart. But I'm here to tell you, I learned so much that I still use today. I use it in my ministry. I learned about compassion. I learned about hospitality. I learned about the great value of community. I will never be the same because of that. And I understand where they are coming from. Yeah, they are different. We have lots in common, but we also have lots to learn from our differences, and they can be enriching. It was the best thing I ever did in my life. So it is not easy, it is challenging, but the differences are enriching. As Christians, we are not called to judge other people. Jesus says time and again, we are to leave judgment to God. Jesus himself said in one of the most famous passages in the New Testament, I did not come into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be made safe. We learned a long time ago, when we were studying Genesis 1, that God created the world in order to be a safe space, to create a safe space for all living things. And that since we are created in the image of the God, that too is our job, to create safe spaces for all living things. In our relationships with people of other religious traditions, we need to think, how can we create safe spaces for them? They are our neighbors. We are called to love our neighbors. Jesus calls us even to love our enemies, so that one day we might all be friends. We are called to love one another. And if we do that, we will have fulfilled our callings as Christians. Okay, thanks for taking the time to view this. I wish you everything good. Thank you again so much for the time you've taken to view these videos. You are dear to me. You are making this day special by just being you, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.